TLV mirror. A TLV mirror is a type of bronze mirror that was popular during the Han Dynasty in China. They are called TLV mirrors because symbols resembling the letters T, L, and V are engraved into them. They were produced from around the 2nd century BCE until the 2nd century CE. Development. The first mirrors with TLV symbols appeared during the 2nd century BCE, with some believing that they were related to Liu's astrological and cosmological interests. The dragon was an important symbol of these early TLV mirrors. In early mirrors from the 2nd century BCE, the dragons were often used as an arabesque. However, by the 1st century BCE, the dragons lost their arabesque form and became full-fledged figures. In the later part of the Western Han period, the dragons were replaced by winged figures, monsters, and immortals. These new mirrors also saw the division of the main area into 2 separate rings, with the TLV symbols being placed in the inner part of the main area and other decorations being placed in the outer area. By the end of the 1st century BCE, the band dividing the main area into 2 concentric rings had largely lost its structural function of separating the mirror into 2 sections. Instead, it existed merely as a line or not at all. Mirrors from the Han Dynasty 823 CE usually have an outer band with cloud or animal motifs, and an inner circle with a square containing a knob. The inner circle often contains a series of 8 nipples, and various mythological animals and beings, often including the Queen Mother of the West. The central square could have an inscription, or contain the characters of the 12 earthly branches. Inscriptions placed in between the mirror's sections frequently discuss Wang Mang and his reign. Symbolism. Scholars are engaged in a debate as to what the symbols on TLV mirrors mean. Some scholars believe that they represent ideas from Chinese cosmology, while others believe that they could also be used to play the board game of liubo. Cosmological significance. TLV mirrors are circular. At their centers is a circular boss inset on a square panel. According to Schuyler Kamen, the design of TLV mirrors was cosmologically significant. The V-shapes served to give the inner square the appearance of being placed in the middle of a cross. This forms an illustration of the Chinese idea of the 5 directions: north, south, west, east, and center. The central square represents China as the Middle Kingdom. The area in between the central square and the circle represented the 4 seas. During the Han Dynasty, the 4 seas represented territories outside China, and did not literally refer to water. The central square within the round mirror likely alludes to the ancient Chinese idea that heaven was round and earth was square. The TS represented the concept of the 4 gates of the Middle Kingdom, an idea present in Chinese literature. It could have also represented the idea of the 4 inner gates of the Han place of sacrifice, or the gates of the imperial tombs built during the Han period. The LS possibly symbolized the marshes and swamps beyond the 4 seas at the ends of the earth. The bending of the LS could possibly have served to create a rotating effect which symbolized the 4 seasons, which were very closely related to the cardinal directions. The 9 nipples in the central square likely represented the 9 regions of the earth as discussed by Kamen as having come from the Shiji. The 8 nipples outside of the central square were most likely representations of the 8 pillars, mountains that held up the canopy of heaven. The area between the inner round border and the outer rim of the mirror was often filled with swirls that represented the clouds in heaven. The game of liubo. Some scholars believe that the design of TLV mirrors is derived from an ancient Chinese board game called liubo, which was played on a square board with the same markings as seen on this type of mirror.